an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Crazy Ex-Girlfriend wrap-up of Season 2. In this episode, I'm going to be answering questions that people have about my impressions on different parts of the show. I'm going to be making predictions on what I think is going to happen next season. And I am going to be talking about overall how I felt about what happened. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Megan for commissioning this episode. I will try and ignore Rashawn telling me a crazy story that makes no sense at all in the chat right now, and focus on the fact that Megan wrote out a lot of questions for me to answer for this episode. So Megan, thank you for doing that labor. She even made or I don't know if she made it, but at least found a pie chart that shows the different colors of nail polish that Rebecca wore and how often she wore them in each season, which are supposed to sort of like depict her mood. And I really wish that there was a way to share this. I don't know, Megan, if you have a link to like a post where this is to share with everybody, because it's in the email. But season 1 had a majority red, and then about equal parts light and dark, and a small sliver of yellow and pink. Season 2 had a large chunk pink, a small section, or about a medium section red, and then very small dark with like middling light and green. So I feel like that season 2, it makes sense. She spends a lot more time actually happy, and I could see pink as just being genuinely like happy with life and in love and feeling good. Red for season 1 could just be horny, right? Passionate, whatever. And then dark just in a bad place, which I would argue that things go much worse for Rebecca in small doses throughout season 1. Than in season 2, where things seem to be going okay, and then she has the one real big, bad, terrible thing at the end. So yeah, that all makes sense. In terms of green and yellow, or just light, which I wonder what light means. I don't know. Green I think of as envious, that's what that symbol, the symbology of that color tends to be. So maybe she wore green in her episodes that were about Anna. But yeah, I could see. Oh, Rashawn says red is danger zone, aka all her behavior in season 1. Okay, I see that. Yellow could be cowardly. Light could just, I do not know. Maybe that's trying to be professional, because like when people say light, I think of like kind of like nude or neutral tones, grays, beiges, pearl, and that sort of is the colors that are favored by a lot of professionals. Okay. Megan's posted a link for those interested, but she says it has spoilers for the other season, so I will not click on it. But okay, so I'm gonna go through Megan's questions, which I think are very interesting. And again, thank you, Megan. So the first one is, each season of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend has a different punctuation style used in the episode titles. In season 1, the titles all included Josh and an exclamation point. Season 2, they all had Josh and a question mark. What do you think they'll choose for the punctuation next season? Do you think Josh will stay in the episode titles? So first of all, I did not realize that the punctuation was what changed. I noticed, of course, that Josh was in the title of every episode. Anything that had to do with anybody, the title referenced them in relationship to Josh. So it was never like Greg. It was Josh's friend, It was never Valencia. It was Josh's girlfriend. It's always filtered through Josh. But the exclamation point changing to a question mark is interesting. I feel like it points to a bit of growth in terms of like she's beginning to very, very barely approach the idea that Josh isn't the answer to the problems in her life. So the exclamation point was like her absolute surety that he was the thing. And then the question mark is the entrance of a little bit of doubt. I would think if we're going into season 3, forgive me guys, I'm going to grab my blanket that's on the floor here because I came back from the gym and sat down and the air conditioning's blowing right straight down the back of my neck. And now I am freezing my tits off. I would think if we're going to do season 3, like we're going to do a similar thing. She asked, first of all, do I think that Josh, if his name is going to be in the episode titles again? I'm going to go with yes. It would be pretty cool if he wasn't. But I think the only way he isn't is if Rebecca begins to realize that her life does not have to revolve around him. And unfortunately, the ending of season 2 does not feel like she has come to that conclusion. Now, it looks like life is going to revolve around getting revenge on him. And that is still focusing on him entirely. This is the thing that so many people, when they go through bad breakups, have trouble with, is people think that the idea of not getting over someone means that you're still in love with them. And that certainly, of course, can be a thing. But what often happens is deciding to make your identity about hating them instead. So now it's all about like, you know, the things that they did to me and identifying as a victim first before anything else. And I really see Rebecca going down that road. She's still barely able to like even approach the concept that external validation is not going to fix her life. And if she can't cope with that as a concept altogether, focusing on Josh and what's going on with him as the solution makes a lot of sense. You know, taking him down, I'm certain she feels will make her feel better and kind of like bring her closure. And what's so hard about bad breakups is that to a point, I understand that, and I even think that can be true. I feel like there are times where a thing will happen and that does give you the closure that you were looking for. But almost never is that closure revenge. Usually closure is really like realizing this isn't worth it anymore. The energy that I've been putting into this isn't worth it to me anymore. And I know that I kind of had that moment with Brendan where I was like really angry. We split up. I was like so angry at him. Then I began to turn the corner and just feel really guilty because of the way I had handled it and feeling really bad. And like, you know, he was not a good husband, but also he didn't deserve this and that I did. And then I finally one day realized that no, he didn't. And you're going to do better and you won't make that mistake again. And you're going to, you know, sometimes you just need to realize that like, you are not going to get the apology from them that you want almost ever. That's the thing that most people are searching for when they talk about closure is they want the acknowledgement from the other party of the harm that was done. That doesn't happen usually. The only time that I have seen that happen in any sort of way is when the other party is trying to get you back. So they acknowledge all of the things that they did, but it's in a self-serving moment of hope that they can get you to change your mind. Admitting that you were wrong in the midst of a breakup that is absolutely going to happen and telling the other person or getting them to admit, that's not usually how things wind up. And I just really could see Rebecca fixating on either getting Josh to like feel as guilty as she thinks he should. Because let's face it, Josh isn't hugely emotionally mature. She said, trying not to laugh. I can imagine Josh feeling guilty for sure, because we've seen him feel guilty before. But he is so immature that I really think that he will expect a sorry to somehow like do the job, fix it, you know? Even to a degree, I could see him thinking, well, it's not like I left you for someone else. I'm becoming a priest, so it's not as bad, right? Because again, he, you know, so yeah, she could either be waiting until he actually apologizes or feels as bad as she thinks he should feel, or until she gets the rush from taking him down that will be the signal that she's gone far enough and now she actually feels better and she can move on. But that's the thing. When you start to take a person down out of a feeling of being wronged and emotional revenge and trauma, your head is so fucked up when you are in that moment that you aren't going to be capable of getting to a place where, okay, that's enough. I think I've accomplished what I wanted. That's like the antithesis of the kind of thinking you need to be having in order to look to take revenge in the first place. So I'm just worried about her making her life all about Josh in a different way. So anyway, all that said, I could see it being the punctuation being periods because she's mad now. She's angry. And that feels like slightly more threatening and serious and just more aggressive in a way. It's not an exclamation point. I'm so excited. It's not a question mark. Well, I'm not sure what's going on. It's a, this is what's fucking happening. Okay. And that feels like the Rebecca that we saw in the last 5 minutes of that episode. So let's see. Yellow was the party bus episode. Oh, okay. Megan is breaking down the colors. Yellow was the party bus episode and green was episodes with Anna. Oh, I was right about that. I didn't want to read ahead on your questions too much. So that makes sense. Yellow was the party bus episode. I mean, yellow is when she is lying straight up to everybody about why she came out here. Up until this point in season 1, she has been dishonest, but not really flat out lied. She's kind of managed to avoid the question. And in that episode, she starts getting outed for what really happened and freaking out. So I could see that being fear. So Megan asks, how would you get revenge on Josh? How do you think Rebecca and her girl group will get revenge? This is the question. I cannot decide. Josh is such a weird dude. Like, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. He's cute as a button, but he doesn't have a whole lot going on in his head. He is so uncomplicated that it's just kind of boring. And I don't feel like when somebody is that uncomplicated, I feel like taking revenge is really hard because you have to do things so overtly. Otherwise, it's not even going to connect what's going on, for in their head. It's just going to sort of feel like, you're doing a lot of things that you think are going to really get to them. And Josh he's so relaxed and he's such a roll with the punches type of guy. All I keep thinking of is the whole thing with Regina George in Mean Girls, where they keep on trying to humiliate her. And everything she does just winds up turning into another trend because she's so completely unbothered that everybody, the person has to be capable of being embarrassed in order for you to embarrass them. And some people, it just takes a lot more to be embarrassed. So Josh, I feel like I don't know what embarrasses Josh. He has said some really silly things. He has kind of he is just a person that is sort of always embarrassing a little bit, at least to me. I don't feel like I have a good handle. All I can think of is separating him from the people in his life that mean a lot to him. Because he puts a lot of stock in friends and family. Samantha says, I can't believe you just compared Josh to Regina George and it totally worked. Well, you get what I'm saying? He just sort of like, he just doesn't really see himself in context. He sees himself the way, like in a vacuum. He sees himself the way that like a kid who's like 12 or even a little younger sees themselves, where they think they're acting like a really cool person and they don't realize yet how obvious it is to everyone else that they are putting on a show. Like that episode where he's about to be a mall model is so incredibly... That is just him in a nutshell. If you were going, how do you embarrass somebody who goes on stage wearing that and is excited about it and thinks you're also going to be excited for them? I don't even know. It's like Josh feels a tiny bit invincible, honestly. So, like I said, all I can think is go up against his friends and family. But how do you do that? His family loves him. They are not impressed. The fact that he fucks up this wedding, they are not surprised. They clearly do not have high expectations of him. But I don't see them cutting him out of their life. Similarly, like White Josh and Hector, they've all of them are a mess, but they're all still friends with each other. So the only thing that could work is maybe low-key framing Josh and having it sound like he said or did certain things that he didn't say or do. Because Josh's whole, like, social currency is what a good guy he is. What a great, positive, fun guy. He's so good-hearted. He just wants the best for everybody. If that's taken away and everybody begins to think the worst of him, I could see that really beginning to get to him. But for me, it's less effective because it's not based in reality. You have to create a fake version of Josh for everyone to hate. And there, that means that there will be some holes in places that he can sort of maybe explain his way out of stuff. Anything that they do has to be genuine and real. Or else, maybe they could get him fired somehow, set him up so that he loses his job. That would fuck him up. I don't know where he's living right now because I had been assuming that he was living with Rebecca in the apartment that she's been sharing with Heather. And then I sort of realized it's never explicitly said. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but we don't actually see Josh find a place to live at any point, do we? What happens when Rebecca finally kicks him out of her apartment? I do not remember if he has found somewhere to go or if he moved back in with his parents or what. I could see maybe that, like getting him fired makes it so that he won't be able to live on his own for a little while. Maybe doing some things to like get it so that his family doesn't even want him to live with them, so that he's really on his own. I was going to say ruin his situation with women, but if he's going to be a priest, he's doing that himself. I really don't know. I mean, him trying to be a priest throws a wrench in the works, like, completely. There are so many things that, I'm talking about, like, make it so that he can't work. Well, I don't know that he keeps his job. I don't know how you train to be a priest. I have no idea how that goes. Does he move into a seminary? Do you live at a seminary? Or do you commute and take classes during the day and then go home? I don't know anything about it. Can they sabotage his application to be a priest? Is that get taken into account at all? Will he even want to keep being a priest? Because this feels like him running to another relationship, but just a very drastic, very different one than usual, in order to avoid the fact that he is worried about things with Rebecca. But it could crash and burn, and by the end of episode 1, he's realized he's made a terrible mistake and doesn't want to do that anymore. And then, if he does, let's say he decides he's made a terrible mistake, I do not have any confidence that Rebecca will not take him back. I want so badly to believe that she wouldn't do that. I want so badly to believe that she wouldn't do that. Rebecca is our messy friend. Getting back with a toxic ex who fucked her over is like textbook. I mean, granted, getting back with him in the first place and then deciding to marry him, that was her doing that. So maybe she got it out of her system the one time. I would love to believe that. I don't otherwise know. What if they found a woman to put in his path to lure him away from the priesthood and then had her brutally dump him? That'd be pretty good. It's a combination of sabotaging his dream and getting him attached to somebody who then crushes him completely. I could see that. Maybe that works. I don't know. He's like got this armor of lack of self-awareness that's just impossible. All right. So let's see. What's the next question? What are your favorite songs from this season? Ooh, I always like when people ask me this question, because you guys asked me this last season, and I honestly have such a hard time pulling songs out of my memory. Because there are some that I remember just really hating, like the one about Josh and Rebecca being in love and them wearing the disco suits is so terrible. It was super bad. There was one, guys, help me out. Feed me some songs in the chat. I'll move on to the next question. Megan says there's a list at the bottom of the email. Oh, girl, you are so good. Hold on. Oh, God. Okay, so episode 1 had Love Kernels, and We Should Definitely Not Have Sex Right Now. Episode 2 has Maybe This Dream, Paula's song, Greg's Drinking Song, and Ping Pong Girl by Josh. God, was that this season? That feels so long ago. Episode 3, The Math of Love Triangles. There goes a bad song. It's not even a bad song. It's actually really well done, but it's such an irritating song, and it goes on for so long. That song was like a minute too long. Period Sex, Sort of. Episode 4, It Was a Shit Show by Greg. We Tapped That Ass, Josh and Greg. That is a really good one that I think of often. That might be one of them. Episode 4, Makey Makeover. Oh, God, that was a good one. Episode 5, Thought Bubbles, Josh's song, and the Triceratops Ballet. Episode 6, Friendtopia. That's a good one. The Trent is Getting Ready song, and Stuck in the Bathroom that Heather sings, which I feel like would have been a lot more effective if I had heard Trapped in the Closet, but I had never heard it. So I feel like the joke and gimmick of that one was a little bit lost on me, unfortunately. Episode 7 is Research Me Obsessively that Anna sings. Let Me Call You Sweetheart by the West Brovinas. Oh, that's so cute. That's true. And You Go First by Rebecca and Paula. Episode 8 is So Maternal by Rebecca and Duh by Josh. Episode 9 is Who's the New Guy? Paula, Tim, George, Maya, and Karen. And George's Turn, which lasts for a very, very short time. Episode 10 is We'll Never Have Problems Again and Period Sex by Naomi. And You're My Best Friend and I Know I'm Not Yours by Daryl. Episode 11 is Man Nap, Daryl, Tim, and Jim. And Tell Me I'm Okay, Patrick, that Rebecca sings. And then 12 is What a Rush to Be a Bride and Rebecca's Reprise. Man. We Tapped That Ass, I think, might be my favorite because it has everything. It has puns. It has a really great reference to what your brain does after a breakup. It has Josh and Greg together, which we don't get that much in this show. And I really love their chemistry together as friends. It has Rebecca as a spectator instead of a performer. And don't get me wrong, I love her as a performer. Like, she's super fun. But she does such a good job of behaving like exasperated and embarrassed throughout that song in a way that is exactly how you react when you remember things like what they're talking about in the song. It just feels really on point. However, Love Kernels, that speaks to some real shit that we do, though. That desperation and trying to make literally anything that someone does, turn it around in our heads to make it mean something that it does not mean. That one is really tough. I feel like that one's the best. Like, I feel like that one's the most brutal song. It's also really, the whole video is a really nice Lemonade reference. Like, you 100% know immediately what she's doing. And the song itself is actually pretty good. And I don't mean to say that as if like most of the songs suck, and for a change, there was a good one, but it's the sort of thing that kind of gets in your head, and there's a syncopation to the way that the music works that, I don't know. I think that one might be the best, but We Tap That Ass is my favorite. Yeah, because a lot of these, I did really like Thought Bubbles with Josh, but I just have gotten so irritated with Josh that it's hard for me to love songs he does. Nothing is ever going to be his angry karate song of season 1. Not going to do it. Nothing will. I mean, that might remain one of my favorite songs of this entire show because it's, I can't, like, I'm about to start laughing just talking about it. Angry, mad, like, that's just such a, it's so Josh, you know, it's just so him. Anyway, okay. So yeah, that's I'm going to say We Tap That Ass, but then Love Kernels. Will you be using any of Rebecca or Valencia's wedding ideas for your own wedding? I don't remember if Owen is still taking Winters as a last name, but if so, the best wedding hashtag I can come up with is "The Winters Are Here," especially if we get A Song of Ice and Fire show, fingers crossed. First of all, he is. We actually talked about it again yesterday because he is a little nervous about his family finding out that he's taking my last name, especially in light of the fact that his father recently died. He feels like part of him is glad that his father won't find, because he never told his dad. He's told his grandparents, and they're the only ones who know right now. But there's one less person to be disapproving of the fact that he's not taking his name. But then he feels like it's an extra kind of fuck you. So that's the thing that's kind of tough is I don't know how public he wants to be about the fact that he's taking my last name with his family because he just doesn't want to deal with them and their opinions about it. If he kind of like manages to come to terms with that, I think I kind of would rather do, like, I totally get what you're doing with The Winters Are Here because that brings it to the present, but The Winters Are Coming is just so much more, like, it's so much more recognizable as a play on that phrase. I really like that, Megan. Like, I kind of, now you've got me sort of convinced that I want to try and like persuade him to say fuck it to his relatives and just be more public about it. But I don't know. That's really good though. The Winters Are Coming is really good. Thank you, Megan, for that. And also, I hate you. As far as their wedding ideas, there's nothing that I can think of that I would copy. The problem for me is that I am doing basically a destination wedding. So, Megan, she just said I was trying to avoid the innuendo and I didn't even think of that. Now it's ruined. Never mind. I take it all back. Oh dear. But yeah, so like I'm trying to do a destination wedding, and because I have to travel and anything that I want to buy myself and use at the wedding needs to be shipped or packed, it really precludes a lot of this DIY stuff that she was doing. Although I will say that the venue where I'm having my wedding has essentially what amounts to like a barn full of decorations that you can use for free, or a separate like area that has stuff that you can pay a fee to use. And they have the aesthetic of the stuff that they offer is extremely similar to the aesthetic of everything that Rebecca was looking at. Just it's very similar to the aesthetic of what you would just see when you search wedding decor on Pinterest. Like what I'm looking for, I'm going to share my Pinterest page for my wedding with you guys so that you can see the general like look I'm going for, and you will understand how very difficult it has been to track down things that fit the mood that I'm talking about. So Megan says, so no chair no one can sit in. No, although they may have one, and that would be kind of funny. But yeah, I have no doubt that were I to be having a wedding at home, there would be a lot of what Rebecca does that I could relate to, even if it doesn't look similar. Because I am just, first of all, I can be cheap as hell. If I know that I can make a thing, I really paying for it instead of making it is something that has only just recently become a little bit more comfortable to me now that I actually have the income to do that, but I don't like to. And secondly, I am incredibly picky. So I don't want to, compromise and have something that I kind of like when I could make something that I most definitely like. But I am sort of stymied by the fact that this wedding is taking place from afar. And that's a good thing, honestly. I don't need to be that wrapped up in the minutia. Honestly, other than my dress not being finished, we could get married with the whole ceremony and the reception and everything tomorrow, and almost everything is already taken care of in terms of planning. So we're in a good place. Fingers crossed, she said cautiously. Let's see. How do you feel about how the show handles mental health? That's an interesting question. It's sort of... So I really like that the show decides to deal with it in the first place, rather than just make this like wacky. They really do delve into the fact that there is shit behind what's going on with Rebecca. There are things that I don't feel qualified to speak on their handling. Like when she's in the inpatient facility in the flashback in the final episode, remembering how she was like taking medication because of the court order. I have no experience with inpatient facilities, and I do not know if that depiction seemed accurate at all or fair at all. I would imagine it was like a really pleasant version of an inpatient facility because Rebecca's mother has money, and she was probably able to send her somewhere that was like, had a lot of resources. So in that respect, I don't know. But in terms of Rebecca coping with figuring out other people aren't going to make her happy, that is really, when you are somebody like Rebecca, so many of the people in the unspoiled community are this type. We were all gifted children, right? We were all kids that like maybe were above average intelligence or above average creativity, just, maybe a little bit more perceptive, maybe a little bit more focused. And so we did better in school. And due to that, the expectations of our futures were very high. And so we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to reach those, not even necessarily our goals, but to reach the goals that were sort of set for us, or the expectations that were set for us. And unfortunately for many of us, our generation got kind of crippled in terms of what we were able to actually accomplish due to the way that like educational prices began to just inflate out of control. The bottom fell out of the workforce, and jobs with like consistent schedules and benefits and all of that completely disappeared. So I think a lot of us have sort of like suffered with this remaining expectation that we still kind of have for ourselves of what we thought our life would be like versus what it's wound up being. And to a degree, we can understand that outside forces had a big role, but we still blame ourselves for not really getting there. And Rebecca's in a weird position because she did get there, right? She went to an Ivy League school. She was top of her class. She wound up working for an incredibly prestigious law firm in New York City and was even offered partner. She turned it down. You know, it's not even that she didn't get offered it. She turned it down. Rebecca actually accomplished so much of what many of us sort of imagined for ourselves. So I feel like she's kind of having a belated and very personal version of what a lot of us have gone through professionally, where we sort of pinned our happiness and our hopes on getting to a certain place with our work and our success and accomplishments being very public and thinking that would make us happy, and being unhappy and assigning our unhappiness to work when that's only a portion of the real problem. Rebecca had the success that I think maybe initially fooled her into thinking she was happy, until she really stepped back and began to realize that like it didn't mean anything and this wasn't actually working for her anymore. And so now she's having the sort of like grasping at things, because that's what we do, right? As human beings, we want so much to be happy. Of course we do. And the things that will genuinely make us happy are often either a ton of personal work that requires us to look at things we do not want to look at and deal with and talk about things that we don't want to even acknowledge happen to us. Or B, happiness has to do with things that are completely outside of our control to a point. And that's a really unpleasant thing to realize. And that was something that when I first moved to Texas, after about 2 years of living here, I began to see a therapist. And that was one of the big moments for me, was realizing I kept operating as if things were under my control, and that I was failing, that things weren't going well because I wasn't trying hard enough. And then I began to realize that like the system that we live in is set up so that people like me do not succeed. That's how it works. It's just very, very strange to see Rebecca as such a relatable character in so many ways, and yet money is never a problem for her. And still feel that she's relatable, because financial problems have been such a big part of my life since I was a child that it is embedded in my DNA to feel unsafe financially. Even when I'm doing all right, it's accompanied by the absolute certainty that this is temporary and it will go wrong, and I just need to be ready for that. Rebecca doesn't have that. Her uncertainty is in the people in her life. And her mother has not been supportive. Her father disappeared. And she has succeeded in all of the ways that on paper matter, but didn't actually feel like she had gotten anywhere. So it's, I want so badly for her to actually go through things with her therapist. Of course, how does the show work if Rebecca begins to really address, truly and really address what is going on with her. I don't know if she will admit to herself or her therapist that her therapist's assessment of her being attached to men who don't fully love her back is absolutely correct, and Josh left her and that's a symptom of the same thing. Or will she see the fact that her therapist sort of called this, and then Josh does indeed abandon her, and her therapist is proven so completely right that then is embarrassing, and she does not want to go see that therapist again. Because that's something that happens with people. They get sort of read a little bit by somebody, and that person turns out to be correct, and they can't bear to face them afterward. And I mean, I am somebody who, when somebody turns out to be right about me and something that they said about me, I become impressed, because I am very used to people thinking the best of me a lot of the time, while I don't. So if somebody is like, actually, you're full of shit and this, and this, and then it turns out that they're right, I'm like, oh, you actually said the truth to me. And I don't feel like I get that often. Thank you. And that sort of makes me interested in hearing more from them. But Rebecca's really, really, really good at denial. She might just refuse to see that therapist again. Like, this woman has been witness to the exact things that she predicted would happen in real time. This isn't even a memory that Rebecca is telling her about belatedly. This is shit that just happened. I don't know. I think it depends on how much Rebecca gets wrapped up in taking revenge on Josh and the way that her therapist talks to her about it and what her judgment call is. If she's super obviously disapproving, which I assume she would be, and Rebecca is absolutely fixated on it, I mean, Rebecca's just going to avoid her, I would think, right? Krista says, you are the best. Hush. See, Krista, this is what I'm talking about. I can't trust you. I'm kidding. I really am kidding. I'm kidding, mostly. No, it's true, though. Like, when people are too nice to me, I'm just like, okay, either you are a liar or you have bad judgment. One of these two things is true, because the third thing, that you're telling me the truth, cannot be true. So it's A or B. Anyway, the whole question initially was, how do I feel about how they handle mental health? And so far, it's just been sort of toyed with. And I have liked it. I like that they, when it comes to Greg, for example, so far, Greg has literally been genuinely taken out of play, which is a big deal. The show basically being like, he realized that this shit was toxic. He has a drinking problem. He needs to get away from this whole fucking mess. And he does it, and really does it. That's not something that you see on television a lot. You see somebody like say that they're going to do a thing, but they need the cast to stay the same. And so that person never really leaves or keeps getting roped into stuff. I feel like them taking that risk and just being like, no, this isn't going to work out. That's fly in front of me. I feel like that's kind of respectful of going through like the process of realizing that you have addiction and really toxic patterns. I also really appreciate the fact that Paula's like obsession with Rebecca's relationship as sort of a band-aid for her own feelings of her marriage being dull and lifeless is really smart. And I like the way they're doing that. So yeah. Krista says, I am a lawyer and therefore evil, but also fey and cannot lie. Well, yeah, you got me there. I'm pleased with it so far. I feel like they've been really careful about it, and I hope that more gets delved into next season. So let's see. Next question. Where do you want to see the show go? Are there any genres and song parodies you want to show up? So that's a tough one. I am not really like well versed in music. So just coming up with the like concept of parodies, like the first things that I think of are like some of my favorite hard rap. I was talking with Rashawn the other day about how much I love Ludacris. I love him so much. I just really do. And doing a version of something of his, because there was a song, it was the I Give Good Parent in season 1. When she was interviewed, Rachel Bloom said that they were trying to do a Nicki Minaj sort of thing with that. That did not come across to me at all in that song. It was like, it didn't feel nearly hard enough. With the costumes, I got it, what she was saying visually, but the song itself did not feel that way to me. So I wouldn't mind some more rap parodies. I could understand, though, if the show writers are a little bit loath to delve into that too much because they are afraid of like seeming insensitive, racist, just, sort of appropriating. I don't know. I think they could do it. I think that if anybody can pull that off without being inappropriate about it, these writers can. But that's really the only genre that I'm pining for personally. Also, the one other one that I can think of is like something that's sort of a plaintive 90s girl rock song, like something Alanis Morissette or Fiona Apple or, something like that. I could see that going. I mean, if there's any time where Rebecca's going to be doing the Alanis Morissette, what is it? I want you to know that this is the time for that song for sure. I would love it if the next season started with that. Matt E says the Nicki Minaj vibes come across a lot better in the uncensored cut of that song. Yes and no. I heard the uncensored one. I don't know. It's not hard enough. It's like, it's too comical in an overt way. Nicki Minaj is comical in a way that feels like she is taking herself seriously, and yet how she is taking herself seriously does not make sense to me. And so I find it funny, but I also really like it, like in a genuine way. It's not like, oh, I like this ironically. I really do love a lot of her music, a lot of Cardi B's stuff. Even though Nicki Minaj, like her brother is like a predator and she defended him, but let's not talk about that. Yeah. So I feel like, I don't know. It wasn't super effective for me. The only thing that I felt like they really got right was the Jap rap battle, which was amazing and remains my favorite song of the show so far. I loved, like, it was a combination of excellent lyrics, and the girl who plays her nemesis is amazing at rapping. Like, really, they found somebody good there, and I hope that she comes back and raps again. If they're gonna do like another sort of like hip hop inspired song, I would love it if she was in it and, doing the drop or the bridge or something. Let's see. And where do you want to see the show go? I want Rebecca to figure out how to like make her life about herself. But I don't know what the show looks like if she begins to get wise to her own bullshit. So much of the show is centered around the fact that she is in denial, that she is looking at the wrong things, that she is setting goals and assumptions up that are incorrect so fundamentally. What happens, though, if she stops doing that? Is she uninteresting to watch? I don't want to think that. I mean, I guess one could introduce a more balanced Rebecca with a, like, less balanced sidekick that we then sort of look to. But this show is about Rebecca. I don't really feel like that works. I don't know what a healthy Rebecca looks like on this show, other than constantly trying and occasionally failing, which is just sort of the human condition. Is like, how do you make that fun to watch? What kind of circumstances does she get put into? Here's the one thing that I will say as a sort of pie in the sky. We have, at the beginning of this season, Rebecca deciding that she needs to get out of her house because she burned it down and move in with Heather. It's a whole new start, right? I would like it if there's something similar with the law firm. But the thing is, in order for that to happen, we have to say goodbye to the whole crazy cast that is at the law firm. I would like it if Paula becomes a lawyer and Rebecca and her open some business together, a law firm together. That would be my ideal dream scenario, is the two of them being partners in a firm that they created. That's the last episode, though. Like, that can't, I don't know. And Paula has a lot of time still in law school. I really don't know. Other than everything about where I want things to go is all based in like end goals, but there's very little in the interim that I can think of. Like, I am excited about watching Paula and Rebecca try and destroy Josh, not because I really think that's going to help, but I just want to see what happens. That's the whole point, right? But I'm also very nervous about it. Like, I know that this isn't going to work. That's the thing. It's not going to make Rebecca feel better. It's not going to fix things. So while I'm excited to see what happens, I also know that can't be the end of it. I'm so worried about that, though, honestly. Let's see. This is only tangentially related to the show, but Rachel Bloom wrote for Robot Chicken, so she also got Seth Green on one of her personal music videos that I love, and she linked a video for Jazz Fever, which I have not watched yet. I should have read through this before I started, but I wanted to save it. And she says Rachel Bloom was nominated for a Golden Globe for this season. Oh, good for her. Did she ever win? I wonder if she ever won for any of her seasons at all. But good for her. That's so, considering the way that she has managed to come up, obviously she had very different resources than I have started with, but I still feel like a camaraderie with her of really deciding to build something of her own. And I just admire that and have a sort of I find it inspiring. And that's not a word that I use often because it feels real hokey, but I do. Megan says not for this season. Okay. But yeah, I feel really bad because I know that, over this past month, she gave birth and also lost one of her best friends who was also a songwriter for the show and is devastated by it. And so she's going through some real shit. 2020 has just been cruel. It has been a cruel, mean year. And we are only halfway through. And in some ways, it can be sort of reassuring to see that even people who are, privileged and doing pretty well in many ways are still going through it. And that 2020 seems to be an equal opportunity terrorist. But I really do admire so much that she was able to create this show and say so many things and be so careful about all of it as she does so, while still managing to be funny and effective with the story. This is a tough fucking line to walk. Being funny without going to the easiest common denominator and a simple joke that's maybe mean-spirited or just lazy, and avoiding doing that every episode for how many episodes now? We've got 2 straight seasons and it's something probably close to 40. That's quite an achievement. The only time that I know that Owen was not impressed with the jokes was the episode where Nathaniel, is it Nathaniel or Nathan? It's Nathan, right? Where Nathan shits his pants. I don't even think that I really talked about that when I covered that episode, because I didn't want to, because it's awful. I hated it. But, you know, the handling mental health stuff, handling like feminism and being conscious of like biases and and even being able to like make songs about it, and having these women who had sort of been at odds become friends and team up is such a refreshing, nice change, and is so it's so encouraging to see that it can be done well and be funny still and be really interesting, that all the characters can still be so distinct. And I just really am impressed with how advanced this show feels. And the fact that I'm, you know, finding it after the fact, this has been going on for years before I even watched it. I feel like it was a little bit ahead of its time, you know, and I hope that it keeps it up. It's got 2 full seasons left. I feel like 4 seasons of this show feels right to me. I think in a lot of television, 3 to 4 seasons is really the max that you want for things to be as punchy as they should be without being too drawn out. And obviously Rebecca still has a lot to work through, and to a degree that's what the show is us like being by her side as she works through some shit. So there's plenty still of fertile ground, but I do think that after 4 seasons of time with her, I don't know how much you could keep it really fresh by then. I'm hoping that when, like, you know, I'm thinking 4 seasons, and each of these seasons has seemed to span what, about like 4 or 5 months of her life? It feels like it might be longer. Rebecca, how old is she supposed to be at the start of this show? I feel like they said somewhere, and she was meant to be younger than I thought she was. Because I think she's supposed to be like her mid-20s or something. I am hoping that like by the time she's nearing 30 in showtime, that she starts to figure it out more. But I don't know that the show spans quite that length of time. So, Megan says 26, if you do the math. Okay. They wanted 4 from the beginning. Okay, good. I like that too. If they went in with a plan for a certain number of seasons and that's what they got, that bodes well as well. Because there's nothing more frustrating than them having like an idea for one season that they then have to sort of stretch out beyond the time that they had accounted for. Or they had more story to tell and they got stopped early. If they are working within the number of episodes and seasons that they asked for, that's a really good sign. But yeah, anyway, what I was saying was there will come a point, if you are continuing to follow Rebecca, where you just want her to have figured her shit out. And I think that after 4 seasons, maybe you start to get frustrated if it doesn't seem like she has made progress. That said, by the end of this season, I do feel she has made progress. It's just not in the direction that I really want. Almost. And then she like stepped left. So yeah, I just really don't know what they do to like make Josh embarrassed and like get back at him. I really don't. I don't know. The next episode though of coverage is not a voyeur, so I think I can safely watch it. Which I am pretty excited about. Let's see. Season 3, episode 1. Oh yeah, what's today? The 17th. Okay, yeah. So it's on the 19th. So yeah, I can watch that tonight with Owen. He'll be very happy. He's been bugging me. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so much, Megan, for commissioning this and for sending me all the questions. I really, really appreciate it. I hope that this was interesting to listen to, even though it wasn't about a specific episode. And thank you so much to all of you guys for coming and hanging out with me. I really love seeing y'all in the chat. And I will be seeing you on Friday with the first episode of season 3. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.